not going to be time limits. There's no rebuttal cards. We're just going to ask questions. You're each going to get a chance to answer them. Let's just have a nice conversation. And with that, I will start with you, Karen. The city council has often been at odds with the mayor. No matter what, we're going to have a new mayor. If elected to the city council, how would you work to bridge that gap between the city council and the mayor's office?
Thank you. And first of all, thanks for everybody for showing up tonight. It's nice to see so many happy faces out in the audience. I think, I've been involved in local politics. I've worked for 2 mayors. I worked for Jim West and Mary Verner. I've been around City Hall a long time, and I think it's a two-way street. I think one way or the other, somebody makes that first move to walk across the hall and introduce yourself and get people working together. Sometimes it works for most of us, and sometimes it doesn't. But I can tell you, in the length of time that I've spent in City Hall, there's always been healthy relationships between the council and the mayor, even with disagreements. And there was always people going back and forth from office to office, talking and making sure that even if we disagreed, that the mayor understood why. And I think it has changed the last probably the last year or so. I think it's gotten a little more frustrating, and I think that the communication has kind of been lacking in some areas. But I think we recognize it, and I think that for the most part, we're all willing to, stand up and try and make that relationship work as best we can. So I don't, that's not a concern for me. I think it's just very natural you start slow and you make sure that you're doing your job and that you're respectful and polite, and the rest kind of will take care of itself as long as you maintain that.
Andy?
Actually, I disagree with Karen. The reason I'm running for office is because I think there's been a lot of dysfunction between the legislative and the executive branch here in Spokane. The city council for years has been dominated with political agendas, personal politics, and communication problems. Sorry. They have trouble, I believe, just communicating with each other and definitely not communicating with the administration. In my career in the United States Air Force, I know what it's like to work with highly functioning groups that are able to work together, put aside politics, and accomplish a mission. And I believe I could bring something like that to this council. And I'm sorry, I'm not a real dramatic person, and I think Adam and Rebecca wouldn't have a whole lot to write about if I was in office.
Oh, yeah, thank you. All right, so change of focus a little bit. The road diet in the North Monroe Street area, do you think that's had a positive impact on your district? And would you support that on other roads in your district or throughout Spokane?
I'm actually against more road diets. We need to be able to get around without frustrations. We're still an automobile-driven society. I absolutely believe in all the safety portions on the North Monroe project, because we did have problems getting across the street with pedestrians, but it's cut down the traffic. It's hard to get across Monroe now. It's almost continuous traffic during rush hour, and it's really hard to get across. And you usually have to make a turn and go one direction and then get in the middle lane and then cross at a different street, is what I've found. But they are beautiful, and it's probably helped the storefronts, but we're not getting the traffic flow through there. People are avoiding it and going on the other thoroughfares, Division and Maple Ash, more than they are at Monroe now, at least in that area. So we are losing some of the business traffic.
And then Karen.
So when I was, during my first term, the very early months of my first term, was that project was up and moving. They had gotten the grant approvals and they were moving forward. So I had gone to my first meeting with the business district, and I was the first one to admit that that first touch, that first communication with the business district, I don't think the city handled well. They weren't listening to the concerns of those businesses. And so that was the first meeting. So what we did is we started going door to door, talking to the businesses, trying to find out what their concerns were. They were very mad at the city. They didn't feel that they had enough of a voice in the process and the planning. And what some of them didn't understand is the North Monroe Corridor project really came from the Emerson Garfield neighborhood plan. So the Emerson Garfield Neighborhood Council had been meeting, and every neighborhood council comes up with a planning document. And part of their planning document was, we want a walkable, safe, slowed down North Monroe. We want to shop here. We want to be able to walk up and down with our kids. So that's where that planning started. From there, we had several open houses, several looks at the plans from the engineers to the city staff, the planning staff, and it took me a while to get on board with understanding that we were doing our best to communicate with those businesses and those residents. Fast forward, the project is done. I think it's beautiful. I think those businesses are thriving. I think we are seeing more businesses come into that North Monroe corridor. It's a corridor. We want people walking, having dinner, getting coffee, walking home from school. Their Trinity Catholic School is right down the street from Montgomery. We want that traffic slow. That's what the neighborhood, when you're in that neighborhood center and corridor, that's what that should be. So the fact that cars are driving up Maple and Ash and Division, they should be taking those streets. This is a center and corridor. This is a neighborhood business area where you are going to see more businesses and more people. I took my mom a couple Sundays ago and we just drove up Monroe and there were people all over the place. So I believe it's a good project. I think that we can do more of those with input from the neighborhood, but also the businesses, because I really do think that that was a difficult start for those businesses to get on board. But I will tell you that the one business owner who was the most adamant and the most against the project, I see him once a month. I go to his business. I visit with him. He is a joy to be around. We've agreed to disagree on some of the project outcomes, but his business is doing better than it has in a long, long time. So I'm pleased with the project, and I think the neighborhood is too.
Okay, we're going to move to audience questions.
Raise your hand if you got a question. Can you hear me okay? No. Now you can. Yeah, my name is Jim Dawson. I live in the South Perry neighborhood. And I'm very concerned about the statewide initiative 976 that's on the ballot that would slash about 60% of the city of Spokane's road maintenance budget that goes to filling potholes and repairing our roads. And I see a lot of candidates saying that road maintenance is really important, but not very few taking a public position on Initiative 976, and I'd like to know where you both stand on that issue.
Can I go first? Yeah, I agree with you fully. 976, I've read up on it, and it could definitely impact many of our projects, especially the north-south corridor. It is absolutely imperative that we keep that project on track. That should have been completed years ago, We need that to be able to move effectively commercial traffic and the majority of the commuter traffic and keep the wear and tear off of our north-south corridors in the city that we're constantly having to rebuild. We need to get them up on the concrete and move them quickly. It also do a lot to help the pollution. And this initiative, although it sounds great, I'd love to only be paying $30. We used to have that. It's creeped up a little bit. But honestly, we have to be able to finish these projects so that we can keep all of our the maintenance on the roads and keep them so that we can move around, really. And I'm definitely a supporter of negative on that. I think that's the way it is. I would vote no because keep it the way it is, not reduce it to 30. That's just so I'm clear.
So I agree with Andy, definite no on that initiative. And the one thing I will say is that money that comes in the City of Spokane has a Citizens Transportation Advisory Board, CTAB. And just a very quick example of how that money can be so helpful to us in Spokane, in our neighborhoods. We were having problems with a little street called Falls Avenue that goes down into Lower Crossing, which is just in back of Kendall Yards. We had fire engines, we had ambulances that were afraid to go down there because every time it rained, it would wash out, it wasn't paved. We had water and waste going down into the river. It was a mess. We had a resident down there who had a disabled son who the people that would come get him on a bus and take him to school didn't want to drive down that road anymore because it was terrible. It was just not safe. And there was nobody in City Hall that could find money to do this. And we started going to the CTAB board, and I started bringing members of the Lower Crossing community to talk to the CTAB board members so they would understand that it's not highly populated down there, probably 16 homes, but for those 16 people, it was dreadful. And there were sometimes that they couldn't get out of their neighborhood when it snowed bad because the plows wouldn't come down. And it was the CTAB board that finally said, okay, we will find the funds to pave that. It was $300,000. They found the funding, and it was the greatest thing in the world. I mean, it went by very quickly, the work got done, and those neighbors now feel that they can get out when they need to. Garbage trucks can go down, ambulances can go in. So those kinds of funds are important, and they're important to our neighborhoods and our arterial areas too. So that's just one thing we've been able to do, and so definitely do not support that.
We got one over here. Okay, I'm Victor Frazier. I actually know both Andy and Karen. And I just want to say also, this is really cool. Spokesman-Review and OverBluff Cellars, thanks for hosting this. I now get to ask a question that I'm wanting to ask both of them. Monday morning on the news, Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich announced or made a statement that the homeless problem that we have in Spokane is due to the current political leadership of the city, and that by offering all these services, we have caused this influx of people on our streets with the cardboard signs, etc. So I'd love a response from Karen first, since she's the incumbent and was on council, as to her opinion about that. Thank you.
I got to keep it shorter, guys. This issue is, I've said this a million times, it's the issue that keeps you up at night. On one hand, I've seen firsthand people that are homeless by no fault of their own, senior citizens that live month to month, live in an apartment, the rent goes up and they can't afford it, they have no family, drugs and alcohol, mental health issues. We do have a problem, and we have known that we've had a problem, and that problem, the numbers go up. I will say that I'm disappointed in the administration because the city council cannot direct employees. We cannot talk to the director of a department and say, go out there, find a building, We'll help you do it, and we'll take care of it all. That's not the role of city council. What we can do is the administration can come to us and say, we've got this building. They had one that they were looking at, the grocery store on Sprague. They came to us. We had a briefing. We approved the $50,000 deposit, and the deal fell apart. Council didn't even really know what happened with that deal. So it is frustrating. It's frustrating when there's an administration that has known we've had a problem, it's getting cold out, we need to do something. So city council is as frustrated as citizens are. This is not an easy issue. We need permanent 24/7 shelters where people can be safe, they can have a meal, we can have social workers that can find out what we can do to help them, because a lot of those people can be helped. They just need the resources. They need the services. There's always going to be a population that does not want the help. We understand that. But we really have to tackle the issue of the young women on the streets who are running from domestic violence and the older people that don't have places to live because the rent went up. Those are the ones that we know we can get into services. And that's, I think, where city council would like to be and find a permanent facility.
I believe all the candidates that are running are pretty much on board. We're all very much, this is the issue of our times. It's affecting Spokane terribly right now. As a veteran, I come from a very compassionate position on this issue because I know there's veterans out there that are homeless. I think we need the people that want help. There's so much here in Spokane. There's so much help for people that want the leg up. And I think we have too broad of a term of what is homeless. I think we need to narrow it down to there's homeless that need help, but then we also have a drug addiction problem, there's mental health issues, and there's also a criminal element that I think we're at a tipping point here in Spokane. We're very frustrated because there's behaviors going on downtown. There's a small amount of people that are giving the homeless a very bad name, and we need to take care of that because we're going to lose businesses, we're going to lose conventions, we're going to lose tourism. We need to help these people off the street, and we don't have a 24-hour shelter yet. We have to get these warming shelters up and operating. They should have been operating already. It's cold out. They should have been, the city council, because I think they do not communicate with each other. They're not communicating well with the administration. We didn't learn from last year what happened. We need to have those shelters up and operating now because it's cold outside.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, we're going to move it along. Now it's time for a quiz show for you two candidates. We had 5 questions, but now we have 2. So the rules are, ring the bell. Who rings it first gets to answer.
I need that.
Are you ready? Oh, by the way, I'm Nick Deshay. I also work for the Spokesman-Review. Question number 1. What's the most common street tree in Spokane? Andy,
Maple?
can you be more specific?
Sugar maple.
No, I'm sorry. You got it half right. Karen, any guesses?
Glazed maple.
How about silver maple?
Okay, it's Norway maple. I'm sorry.
Norway, okay.